Welcome in, everyone. My name is WowShane, and welcome to Your Favorite Game, the show where we talk about your favorite game. Today's video is on Pokémon Colosseum, released for the GameCube, and our guest today, Ninpalk, has opted to not use Facecam, so we'll be using this lovely picture to represent them while they're speaking. Today, our guest is Ninpalk. Ninpalk, why don't you tell the people about your favorite game?
My favorite game of all time is Pokémon Colosseum, and well, let's ask some questions before I get into why exactly. But I really enjoy the game, and it's been my favorite for all these years. So
when you play Pokémon Colosseum, how do you play Pokémon Colosseum? Do you just do casual runs? Do you challenge yourself? Do you go for speed runs?
Well, even though I am a speedrunner, I would never speedrun Pokémon Colosseum. As a speedrunner variety person, I would say that I never would want to speedrun my absolute favorite game, because speedrunning kind of gets you to look in the game in a different way. I do always want to look into Colosseum in a different way. I never want to be stuck into a singular thought on how to play a game. So Colosseum, I like to mix things up. Sometimes I'll do casual. Sometimes I'll do little weird, not necessarily Nuzlocke, but just I always switch up my team in the game and everything, and I always play it in a different way every time I play it.
What about Pokémon Colosseum keeps bringing you back to it? What makes it your favorite game?
What I really like about Pokémon Colosseum is how it feels unique as a Pokémon game, and there are other games that I won't get too into this, but there are other games of Pokemon that do have some darker tones. But even in comparing it to without getting into detail, XD, this game really has the mystery of Shadow Pokemon, where all they know is Shadow Rush, which could be considered, weird. But I like the idea that we don't know much about Shadow Pokemon in this first game. I have a lot of nostalgia for the game. There's just so much that I love about the game, and it just has a different tone. Kind of has a ghetto tone to the game that makes it different as a Pokemon game.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's a very isolated feel. You have to travel really far to get to actual civilizations in the game.
I think the region is actually based on Arizona, from what I heard. It's all desert, so
I've heard that as well. And plus, the Shadow Rush mechanic, it confused me so much as a child. Why can't these Pokemon learn actual moves? Why am I stuck with Shadow Rush?
And learning the mystery as you went on was something I really enjoyed, where you would slowly start to learn moves and purify them. I just thought the way that Colosseum handled Shadow Pokemon as the first game was really a nice mystery that you slowly get to unravel. But it's still a bit of a mystery even if you purified everything.
What is something you would add to Pokémon Colosseum to make it a more enjoyable experience?
So I feel like this is something that a lot of people would agree on, because Pokémon Colosseum is a Generation 3 Pokémon game. And one of the biggest things added after Generation 3 was this physical special split for the moves in Generation 4 and onward. And I think if there was a physical and special split in Colosseum, it would make some of these Pokemon a lot better. Because some of their move pools don't really fit the type that, the way, for anyone who doesn't know, the way physical special split worked before the split, instead of a physical special split for each individual move, the Pokemon would have it based on the type it is. So fighting would always be physical, for example. And that doesn't matter for some types, but some types it really made them not as good. And I think that would make this game even more deep if each move had if Flame Wheel was always physical and something else was Flame Wheel was always special, that sort of thing would really affect it.
If you had to remove one thing from Pokémon Colosseum, what would you remove?
Okay, so this is a weird thing for me to remove because I've never even encountered a shiny Pokemon in this game, because it's a one-in, but that's kind of why I would remove this mechanic. Shiny Pokemon in this game, some people don't even know they're in the game, because Shadow Pokemon, it's already a 1 in 8,000 whatever the heck chance that a shiny rates normally are to even see it shiny. but the seeing it shiny doesn't matter because when you catch it, it won't be shiny unless you're super lucky and get the double check. But getting a shiny in Pokemon Colosseum, you have to hope that it's shiny after you catch it, which wouldn't be the first time. It'd just be the second time it would be shiny. I mean, it's possible to get them both times. And then after that, if you want to transfer your shiny, you have to get it purified again for the shiny check a second time, which you could save before. But it was super tedious for shiny hunters on Colosseum. It was one of the hardest games to shiny hunt. And as someone who did a lot of shiny hunting in games like Legends Arceus, like, I think this could be a cool game to shiny hunt if the shinies were more streamlined. So I wish they had better shiny mechanics, but I can kind of excuse it considering this was a team that hadn't worked on Pokemon until now.
I am definitely one of the people guilty of not knowing shiny Pokemon were in the game, but that sounds ridiculous. So it can appear shiny in battle, but if you catch it, it'll just lose its shininess a lot of time?
So it's weird, because, like, for example, there's stuff like, there's a battle with Hitmontop, where you see it the first time and you see it the second time. I think that one is one of the weird cases where it's easier to shiny hunt, because when you fight it the second time, because it originally lost to Pikachu, I think that time, I don't know if that one's shiny locked or if that one's shiny, like, I know this game introduced some shiny locks, like you can get Umbreon and Espeon unless you have a modded game, but like Shadow Pokemon, it's really weird because you have to just catch it, hope that it's shiny, and then when you purify it to try to transfer it, you have to go through a second shiny chance, which it's not like you could just have it turn into shiny. You have to get the luck to keep the shinies. So you got to get 2 chances if you want to transfer that. And that's the thing, like if you ever wanted to get like a Quilava or something in your Pokemon Emerald shiny, you're gonna have to work hard for that.
So for this next question, you can choose to answer only one, or you can do both, whichever you want. It's up to you. What is your second favorite game, and or what game would you compare to Pokemon Colosseum?
So I'll answer both of them. My second favorite game is actually Cave Story, which I've just replayed that game probably even more than I have Colosseum because it's a shorter game and I have speedrun and stuff. But it's completely different to Colosseum. It's a completely different type of game. And as much as I love Pokemon, Colosseum is one of the few games that would go up in my favorites, like in my top 10. I think there are like other ones that I think are really good in Pokemon, but like I'm not as much of an RPG guy as I am just a Pokemon guy and stuff. I'm mainly into like 3D platformers, 2D platformers, which is why I love Cave Story and stuff, because that's like a 2D platformer. But Cave Story is my second favorite game, but I wouldn't compare it at all to Colosseum because they're very different. What I would compare to Colosseum, one of the games I would compare is the starting area in Thousand Year Door, Rogueport. Kind of gave me Pyrite Town vibes, where it's like it's a bit more ghetto than you'd be used to in a Nintendo game, and that was one of the things that, like, I experienced it first in Colosseum because I didn't get Thousand Year Door right away. I'll get into that later. But the game that obviously is the most easy to compare to this game is Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. It's the sequel to the game. It had a lot more Shadow Pokemon. It had more Shadow moves and kind of almost made Shadow like a type, kind of. But I liked the simplicity of Colosseum more than XD, and that's where I can kind of compare. Like I know a lot of people prefer XD, but Colosseum I don't know. I just really like it because there were some things that XD didn't have. It didn't have that, like, at the intro of Pokemon Colosseum, there was, like, in the intro of XD, you're just a kid, like every other Pokemon game. In the intro of Colosseum, you blow up a criminal hideout and just escape and be like, yep, I stole their snag machine to do good. And that's like one of my favorite intros to any game ever. Because if you go in playing a Pokemon game, you are not going to expect, okay, I'm playing this Pokemon game that's the first ever RPG on a console, and when you're meted with it, you see this guy blow up a building, and now you're running from them or whatever. I did not expect that as a kid, because when I was a kid, it was my first like actual Pokemon game in 2004. Like I had other games that I've seen my cousins play and stuff, but I didn't really start games until like owning games until 2004 when it came out. And honestly, like, just the shock of that's not Ash. That guy is like almost like a bad guy, but he's cool, and just a lot of memories there. One more comparison is I would say Legends Arceus does fit some of the tones that Colosseum has, and I think the tones is what really gets me on Colosseum. Just because like the nostalgia of thinking like, oh, this is how the world can be, you know? Because like, I wouldn't say I grew up in the nicest place, but my parents did definitely shield me from any ghetto-ness. Like they tried to like not have me go downtown in areas and stuff like that when I was little, just try to protect me. So it was cool seeing this kind of stuff, like seeing kind of the real world through a video game. And that's why I really like Colosseum, and I feel like XD like kind of cleaned up the places like Pirate Town, and I don't know, I just feel like for example, if they ever remade Thousand Year Door or whatever, like they would probably get rid of, for example, the noose that's in the Rogue port. So I feel like it's kind of hard to see Nintendo do something like Colosseum or Thousand Year Door again, if that makes sense. But they kind of did it with Legends Arceus a little bit. So that's why I compare those games. They aren't my favorites, but they are very good games. But yeah, those are how I would compare games to Colosseum.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I've actually never thought to compare how Rogueport looks to Pirate Town. Yeah, just like you, I grew up like in definitely a better area, and it was definitely very, I want to say the GameCube had like, they were trying to compete with the darker games like your GTAs or your Halos, and they were trying to throw you in quote worse looking areas, but it really shone a light that not everyone can be privileged or is privileged to live in a nice area, and you have to make the most of where you're located and where you are born and raised, and you have to do the best that you can just to move on, you know, and live your life.
Yeah, exactly, and that got me like thinking almost not necessarily philosophical ways, but like, you know, like it got me thinking about life, like hey, I'm not here where people are, you know, I mean, I guess it's weird to say because it's Pokemon, right? But I'm not in a spot where Pokemon are evil and they attack me, and like where all these people are kind of, what's the word? I don't know, like the people, like they're, I guess it just wasn't, it's not like I had to experience the ghetto-ness of Rogueport or Pirate Town, and that I'm grateful for my childhood.
Yeah, I'm living in the ghetto myself right now, and it's not the most fun time, but gotta make the most of everything. So I, much like you, grew up playing this game, and I definitely restarted it and played it through a ton of times as a child. Not because I wanted to, but I'll get to that. I definitely enjoyed all the new mechanics this game threw in. Like, I grew up starting with Gen 1, Gen 2 Pokemon, Gen 3 Pokemon, and then Pokemon Colosseum. And for all this time, you got yelled at when you tried to steal people's Pokemon. So it was something entirely different to flip the game mechanic on its head and steal Pokemon from other trainers, but there's none out in the wild. And then I'm pretty sure this is correct, but I don't think there's a single battle in the game. Every single battle is a double battle. And that was something when Ruby and Sapphire came out, it was a new feature. But they only had a handful of double battles in the game, and I wanted more double battles because it was something new. And so it was really awesome to have just double battles in this game.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I was never able to beat Pokemon Colosseum growing up because there was something wrong with either my disc or my memory card. Every single time I would make it, I would say probably like halfway to 3/4 of the way through the game, I would be underneath Pirate Town, I would capture Suicune, and for whatever reason, every single time I did this, it was late at night, I would save, I would go to bed, I would come back the next day, and my save file was corrupted. This happened at least 4 to 5 times before I just finally gave up on it. And it kind of tainted my experience with the game, I'm not going to lie, but that's a personal thing. I still think the game is a fantastic game, worth people's playthroughs. It's just a little tainted in my memory for personal reasons.
Yeah, and I will say there isn't many single battles in the game, to correct you on it. The only single battle is the scripted one with Pikachu versus Hitmontop. And other than that, there's an option to do single battles for like a Mount Battle challenge. But other than that, there isn't any story single battles that you actually control.
The Pikachu Hitmontop battle was fully scripted, right? That was the old
Yeah,
man?
it was fully scripted for Pikachu to lose. And I think that's what I liked about this versus XD is not just the ghetto-ness and stuff, but like you're always double battles. You start like midway through an adventure, instead of taking a starter Pokemon, you have like level 26 Umbreon, Espeon type thing. And the fact that there's no wild Pokemon in this game, there's a few wild Pokemon in XD, but like not very many. And it's just, I did think that it was really cool that there were no like wild Pokemon. You had to like just take the evil ones only. Because if you try to use a Pokeball on something that like isn't a Shadow Pokemon, they'll still say, no, you can't steal that. So it's like you still have morals. So I thought that was cool. I actually had some issues myself in the past with my disc, I think, was scratched or something. That's like a different detail. But we played this game like so much, maxed the timer to 99.59, and I didn't lose the save data or anything, but my disc eventually, like, since we were kids, we probably didn't handle it the best compared to now. And eventually I had to like beg to get it for a later Christmas because like we weren't sure what was working. Like the Colosseum disc wasn't working. We had to get a new one, and there's another story there, but I'll save that for the end.
All right. Anything else you would like to add while we're still here?
So, like I said, Colosseum, I maxed the timer at 99.59, which is something that people did not expect you to be able to do, I guess. Like, I guess they didn't expect someone to have 100 hours in the game. Like I said, the Christmas that I had for getting this game, it's funny how the story kind of goes, because like when I got my GameCube with this game in 2004, I got it with Double Dash because Double Dash was what I played at a store, and we all really liked it. I got Colosseum and then Pac-Man World 2, which I also really... All three of these games are really held dear to me. Pac-Man World 2 was because my mom was like, oh, I grew up with Pac-Man. So, like, Pokemon Colosseum was because we saw our cousins playing Pokemon, we watched the show. And I always thought it was cool that, like, if you play a game like Fire Red or something, you could still... Even though every Pokemon fan knows it's not Ash, if you're a kid, you're like, oh, I'm Ash, you know? Like... And that's why it was weird in Colosseum. There's a partner that looks like Misty, but you're not Ash, clearly, when you're playing as the character. So we're like, what's going on? And it still felt awesome, even though it wasn't what we were familiar with as a kid. But it was the first game I ever beat, because even though it's considered the hardest Pokemon game, because you know how kids play Pokemon, they like get... Especially in like double battles or something, you would get 2 Pokemon to level 100, maybe have something with EXP share, and maybe have some other stuff that like they got at the end of the game or Victory Road or something. That was similar to me. I like raised my Umbreon and even my Plusle to level 100.
Wow.
Which you get that at like level 13.
Wow.
Because I mean, I guess Plusle works. I mean, the cute factor worked because we thought it was cute, and we couldn't use Pikachu, so I guess Plusle is a successful Pikachu clone, I guess. Which is funny. The funniest thing about Plusle being in this game, and you have to get it, is it has the ability Plus. So you think, oh, maybe I'll get a Minun later on. Nope, no Minun, just Plusle. So its ability is completely useless. So yeah, I thought that was really cool, and I'm always trying to find different ways to play Colosseum. I don't play Colosseum all the time. I always want to like keep my opinions fresh on it and like find new ways to like. There's only like 48 or so Pokemon, Shadow Pokemon in the game. It's like around like 50 Pokemon total, 51. So it's like I want to keep my team different each time, and I always try to change up the team at least. And I've only 100% of the game once. I want to clear that up, because 100%ing this game is pretty tough, trying to purify every single Pokemon and then doing a Mount Battle challenge and stuff. All that aside, like I have a lot of memories with this game. I don't want to be going on too long, but like it was just. It's always been a fun time with Colosseum for me. Just having different tones, having double battles when it is very different for Pokemon, and considering it's my first Pokemon game, it felt very special to me, and it still does, because I'll remember all the time when I first see Mirabee, when I first go to the Under, all that stuff. I want to thank you for this opportunity to talk about my favorite game, and like I said, for anyone that wants to speedrun their favorite game, if you're okay with thinking of it as a speedrun only, kind of like thinking like I just want to speedrun it only now, that's fine. But for me, a game like Pokemon Colosseum, I don't want to I feel like if I learn to speedrun Colosseum, Pokemon speedruns are a game where you have to know everything about the game, when to do whatever you have to do with RNG. And for me, the rule of speedrunning is don't speedrun your favorite game unless you want like a fresh take that you won't, no turning back type thing. And yeah, that's generally me with Pokemon Colosseum. I just really love the game. It's just really fun. I know there's always can be issues with like discs and memory cards or whatever, but I feel like that could happen with any game, I guess. So, but yeah, one more thing I want to say is if I ever reach 50 subs on Twitch, I want to celebrate by doing a no snag challenge, which is basically trying to beat the game without catching any Pokemon, which would mean the only things I would have for the game is Umbreon, Espeon, and eventually Plusle. So that'll be interesting if we ever get to that, because I don't think the same thing would be possible with XD, because I'm pretty sure they force you to catch one Pokemon. I'm not certain though, and trying to do the whole game with just Eevee would be impossible, to say the least. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the show, my friend. Why don't you tell the people where we can find you?
You could find my streams on twitch.tv/Ninpalk, and sometimes I'll just say random stuff tweet random streams on Twitter, twitter.com/Ninpalk. I don't know if there's an @ there, because it's @Ninpalk, but I don't know how the Twitter links work, but basically Ninpalk on every social that you'll ever see me on, so.
Alright, I would like to thank you so much for being on the show. Greatly appreciate you. Everyone watching, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, go check out Ninpalk on his socials, and I'll see you next time. Have a great rest of your day.